Um, is that legal to do on Coney Island? This article is a little couple months old now, but I wanted to talk more about it, give my 2 cents, just like people did with the Wall Street Journal one about, I forget what it was, the women walking away from marriage one. Today I want to talk about What You Lose When You Focus on Partnership by Faith Hill. You may remember Faith Hill from such articles as The Singlehood Stigma, I believe it was called. But before we find out what we lose when we focus on partnership, romantic partnership that is, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoy it, comment your thoughts along the way, and subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. By the time she was in her mid-30s, the writer Melissa Febos had been in relationships for 20 straight years. One romance would end and another would begin immediately, if it hadn't already started. A long relay race of partners. In the rare stretch of singlehood, she would always have a crush ready to grab the baton soon enough. She said it, not me. The manosphere always accuses women of having her next boyfriend or partner, whatever you want to say, ready to go. Monkey branching. This is literally monkey branching right here. This might sound to a lot of people like great luck. Our culture tells us that such abundance is a privilege, Febos acknowledges in her new book, The Dry Season, a memoir of pleasure in a year without sex. But abundance, in her experience, felt more like constraint. 2 words: analysis paralysis. In one terrible 2-year relationship, she writes, she cried so often that the skin near her eyes began peeling off. Texts from her girlfriend made her so anxious that she had to keep changing the alert sound. Other times, she details quieter torments, always thinking about her latest flame, always expected to tell them her whereabouts, never really able to work or read or daydream in peace. Her body didn't feel like her own anymore, but rather like a work animal who slept in a barn behind the house of my mind. She recalls feeling like a hungry ghost, always starved for affection, but never sated. You can't get enough of a thing you don't need, her therapist tells her. Therapist isn't completely wrong, because I always say that romantic partnership is like icing on the cake. It's a nice little bonus, but without it, the cake is still delicious. Although, I recently watched Loser Maxing's video about the 40-year-old virgin, where he said that it's actually a necessity for men to experience romantic relationships to some extent. I'm sure there's a certain biological necessity there, like something with the. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist. You let me know in the comments down below whether you agree with loser maxing that it is essential, or if you agree with me that it's a nice little bonus if it happens, but not the end of the world if it doesn't. I'm sure he's probably got science on his side in terms of the deeper workings of the human body and mind. But personally, I think that it's possible to work past it. I mean, look at the Catholic Church. Every priest is required to take a vow of celibacy. They make it work. Getting back to the article, and that's pretty much a promotion for the book. Finally, she resolves to take a break. Or rather, she has another 5 flings, like the last handful of popcorn you cram into your mouth after you decide to stop eating it, and then resolves to actually take a break. She will be celibate for 3 months. Yeah, sometimes you have to get a last fix before you move on. Me personally, I'm getting my last fix of homemade pizzas before I eventually move back to frozen ones for the rest of time. I actually just had to formulate how to use a 3 pack of packets so I don't have to buy another jar that has 16 portions of what I need because I do not want to buy more flour. I do not want to buy more materials in general. I just want to clear what I have to and then go from there. I had to get a little creative with using those packets so that I can get a total of 4 portions. I'll get back to you on how that goes. Yes, 3 months. Phoebos appreciates the laughable modesty of her goal. They're amateur numbers. I'm just gonna say it. But she argues that, for her, it was ambitious. An attempt not only to take a breath, but also to find the bottom of her bottomless need. The dry season is an account of this period, which turns into a year during which she abstains from sex, dates, and flirting. It doesn't call for an end to romance, but it is an indictment of a dependence, individually and societally, on partnership. Phoebos doesn't want to lose passion, but she needs to find balance. Yeah, it's a mix of that, and there are deeper biological urges that, like I said earlier, have the science be on loser Maxing's side in regards to his 40-year-old virgin video. But again, like I said earlier, religious folk who take a vow of celibacy, they make it work. The particular abundance of which Phoebos speaks, I can't say I'm personally familiar with it. I don't think too many people are, or not to this degree. In her handful of celibate months, she must resist suitor after suitor popping up like road obstacles in a racing game. There's a writer who, at a conference, literally begs her to have sex. The friend who confesses her attraction. The acquaintance who thinks their dinner is a date. The playwright who keeps texting. There's a hot stranger on a plane. But Phoebos never claims her journey is anything near universal. She unpacks how she learned early on to catch and hold people's attention, to make them want something from her. When she left home at 16 and supported herself with restaurant work, her tips, and thus her survival, depended on it. She also recounts her history of addiction, how she's no longer using heroin, but still, to some extent, chasing the next reward. And anyway, I'd guess that most readers, whether or not they're serial monogamists, have struggled at some point to shut off whatever autopilot setting cuts against their own best interests. As I read, Phoebos' celibacy challenge went from feeling like a humble brag to a deeply relatable effort. And as she settled into her solitude, her observations began to resonate. She details parts of singlehood that I, too, have treasured, and which I've extolled again and again in my reporting on romance, even from people whose celibate season resulted from a dearth, not an excess, of options. So, you mean incels? I wonder if Faith Hill has covered incels. That's a topic for another day, though. Anyway, what I want to say is I'm feeling something similar with video games right now. I recounted how I played Breath of the Wild for like 40 hours over the course of 5 days, no, about six. And I completed all the shrines, defeated Calamity Ganon, and did the Champion's Ballad DLC. I finished up Breath of the Wild within 2 weeks, or at least that much. I didn't do all the side quests. I scratched the surface with the Korok seeds. Look, at a certain point with a game that big, and I wanted to be able to move on to something else eventually, I had to make a choice. I had to choose to focus on the things that would actually help in the final fight with Calamity Ganon, and I stand by my decision, but we're not here to talk about my gaming habits. The point is, in the days after that, on Thursday of that week, I did not play any video games. And then on Friday, I started on GoldenEye, where I'm trying to do one full mission per day to get a couple weeks out of it, where I spend maybe an hour or two playing GoldenEye per day, rather than fill my entire day with it, which, if I were to do that, I could beat GoldenEye in like a day or two. But I would much rather focus on doing this than that. Because one of the commenters on one of my videos, I'm going to actually pull it up and show you. Here we go. From Dutch West Films. Also, doing something that's constive, like producing videos, or I'm guessing that's supposed to be constructive, like producing videos or writing a book, even if they don't become a hit, could pay off later, even if it's indirectly, through transferable skills or something to put on a resume. The way, and I assume he meant to say I, look at video games is that they are fun, but it's just consuming something rather than producing something that's uniquely you. To which I replied, true, though maybe if I went back to recording my gameplay and used it for content creation, that'd be a different story. I'm done with Breath of the Wild, so I'm scaling back my gaming to smaller games. And that I did. Now, how do we get here again? I just need to take a quick look at the article to remind myself. Now let's just get back to the article. The point is, though, I decided to focus on the more constructive things. Kind of like how the author of the book that Faith Hill is talking about decided to focus on other aspects of life instead of dating. One of the qualities that Phoebos discovers is absolute tranquility. She luxuriates in her quiet mornings, with no one hogging the bed or waiting to hear back from her. She spends whole weekends reading paperback mysteries, carrying them with her to the bathroom, getting lost in them as she hadn't since she was young. The calm is not just physical, but, more importantly, mental. When I spoke with people who quit dating out of frustration, several told me they discovered immense peace. With Phoebos' attention freed up, she notices the smells of a New York summer, the flowers she passes along the streets, the tart explosion of each raspberry she eats, one by one from a whole carton. Yeah, you've got more mental bandwidth if you don't have to focus on a romantic partner. As romantic distractions fall away, the quiet also makes way for freedom. When researchers ask people what they most appreciate about singlehood, many mention a sense of autonomy. Phoebos expresses delight in running her own schedule, foregoing meal times and eating when she's hungry, grazing on green apples and cheese, olives and nuts, pickles right out of the jar. Her liberation isn't just related to action. It has to do with possibility, open-endedness. Every partnership been in had, inevitably, structured her life according to a certain narrative. Identity is a story other people tell us, that we learn to tell ourselves, that is housed inside relationships, she writes. It can be comforting, but also suffocating. When she wakes in her bed alone or returns to the world after immersing herself in a book, she is not hit with the recollection that she is Melissa, someone's girlfriend. She just exists. Yeah, that's the reason why some of the other videos I watch from like Dapper Dev or Strong Successful Male recounting subscribers' stories of dating horror stories make me really glad that I am single because I have the freedom to go ahead and just buy a ticket to go see the new Fantastic Four movie like I'm doing 2 days from when I'm recording this. So it'll be 2 days after. This will go up 2 days after that will have happened. We'll see if my movie scout, oh, it's 8 out of 10, proves that proves to be in line. We'll see if my score aligns with that score. But the point is, I'm free to just do it my way, you know? If I want to go see it. It's been, what, 7, 8, 9. It'll have been 11 days since release. But that's because I held off last week because I wanted to make sure that other people at least approved of it to some extent because I trust my movie scout. But I wanted to see what the more typical Disney critics had to say. And then it turned out that I was still doing the showtime that I wanted initially for the 29th if I were to end up going, so I did that, and we'll see what happens with that later, but let's get back to the article. Oh, it actually takes me back to. I know I said in previous videos that the reason I love being single is I don't have to wait to watch something with a romantic partner. Kind of like how I did not wait to watch Sonic the Hedgehog 3 when all my friends were going to go see it 2 weeks after release, and when they watched the Knuckles series together 2 weeks after it dropped. I watched both the day they came out, and I stand by my decision. That's not to say that Phoebos spends her dry season in oblivious solitude. Quite the opposite. She describes gabbing on the phone with her mom and her friends about a million things other than her crushes. While staying overnight with an old pal, she writes, she's startled to find that she has nothing else to do, no one to call and wish a good night, no higher priority than to be with my friend. This might be the greatest benefit of singlehood, the deepening of other connections. Surveys have found that single people, on average, have more friends than married people and feel closer to them. They are more likely to spend time with parents and siblings and to know their neighbors. They volunteer more for certain organizations. Many couples, meanwhile, have a tendency to look inward, to remain in a cozy bubble, thinking mostly of each other. For a variety of reasons, not all of them bad, partners today spend more time together than those in the 1960s did. I am very surprised by that, but it just goes to show that I would think that that kind of thing would get whoever was pushing for it just being the two of them to be accused of controlling behavior. I mean, when women are asked to stop seeing ex friend because she's a bad influence, or being asked not to have male friends, she typically accuses them of the guy of being, quote, controlling when trying to do that. Meanwhile, I actually watched a Better Bachelor video last night where he talked about how all the men's spaces were taken away, and that's why men were being more vulnerable with their romantic partners, resulting in them being less attracted to them, even though they wanted them to be more open and vulnerable. Yeah, let me put it to you this way: man or woman, if you're if a potential romantic partner wants you to give up literally all your friends, you walk away. Now, it's a different story if they point out, say, a friend or two or three who are a bad influence. And I say this for both sexes, by the way. If you're a woman who notices that your boyfriend or husband has a friend who is a terrible influence or doing something like that, you shouldn't be afraid to point out. The problem is if you try isolating them completely. And this goes again for both sexes. If you try isolating them completely, then you have a problem because that is a common abuser tactic. But we'll talk about that another day. Phoebos recognizes the appeal of a more circumscribed life. The outside world seems to be growing only more dissonant and chaotic. Focusing on a partner can be a way to protect oneself from fully processing a barrage of bad news and angry discourse. It seemed impossible to keep an open heart in this world, she writes. It made sense to keep the channel of one's heart narrowed, the width of a single person, to peer through the keyhole at a single room, rather than turn to face the world. But when Phoebos stops looking through the keyhole and turns around, she finds that being single feels like anything but a dry season. It's the most emotionally and spiritually fertile time of her life. The ties she strengthens aren't only social, she also starts connecting with nature, art, her surroundings. Instead of narrowing the aperture of my feeling, she writes, I expanded it. A light that shone not on specific objects, but illuminated everything in proximity. She isn't in love with a partner. She is in love, full stop. Phoebos is clear that, as much as she enjoys singlehood, she never intended to linger there forever. And she doesn't. Pretty much as soon as her year of celibacy comes to a close, she falls for the woman who becomes her wife. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a small stab of disappointment, as if she'd abandoned the whole venture she claimed to champion, only confirming that the luckless are indeed losing out. But Phoebos' greatest challenge, really, begins as the book ends. Being single is easier, in a sense, than being partnered and still preserving your other relationships, your interests, and yourself. This is actually giving me ideas to just write a similar book from the male perspective, using my actual experiences, some of which I have discussed on this channel. You let me know in the comments down below if you'd pick up that book. It's just an idea I have. She's been preparing for this test. Phoebos makes clear, throughout the dry season, that what she wants isn't just to stop defaulting to romance. She also aims to divest from a relationship culture that is rooted in patriarchy, one that so often leads women, even those who aren't dating men, to make themselves so small that they disappear. She finds historical role models in women who chose celibacy or solitude over a partnered domestic life, and thus were allowed to retain an unusual amount of agency. Hildegard von Bingen, a Benedictine abbess and eventual saint, lived in the Middle Ages, when women's lives were severely restricted. By claiming a direct line to God, though, she was able to become a composer, lyricist, and the author of numerous scientific texts. The Beguines, a group of medieval laywomen, traveled and lived independently, teaching and working in service to the poor instead of becoming the property of husbands. Phoebos studies these models and also makes a list of all her past entanglements, analyzing each in hopes that she can discover and break her own patterns. She comes to believe that she's been conditioned to identify what someone wants from her and measure her value through her power to grant it. My worth is contingent on my lovability, she writes down on a slip of paper. Then she goes to Coney Island, digs a hole in the sand, and burns it to ash. She promises herself to remain faithful to what I had found. Um, is that legal to do on Coney Island? I'm pretty sure that probably violates some kind of rule of the Coney Island beach, if not an outright fire hazard. I've never actually been to Coney Island, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure open flames are generally prohibited at places like that. Like, when I've gone to Gillette Stadium for the two Patriots games I've been to, when the people I was with were tailgating, I remember seeing that open flames were prohibited and they had to use gas grills instead of charcoal grills. You let me know in the comments down below if you can confirm if Coney Island has similar rules. That just caught my attention is all. Back to the article. Can she be, though, now that she's no longer single? Phoebos seems to have come a long way from where she started. When she first has lunch with her wife-to-be at the writing conference they're both attending. She knows they have chemistry, but doesn't let that knowledge consume her. She pulls her attention to the world around her, the trees just beginning to bud, the crowds of people, the pinch in her left shoe. I want to believe this is enough, that if you're intentional, you can be someone's partner without losing any of yourself. I'm not sure I do. Maybe Phoebos still eats pickles straight out of the jar and sleeps alone, splayed across the whole bed. But when she wakes up, she will know that she can no longer be anyone or no one. She will be shaped by the story of her relationship. She will, in some way or another, be bending herself into half of the whole. You can't turn towards someone without turning away from something else. Yeah, humans have finite mental bandwidth. It's just like you can't do tons of creative projects on your own. Like, for example, at most, in addition to these YouTube videos, I could maybe write a book, but that's about it. I mean, I could do even more if I was willing to do even less leisure things like the non constructive activities that Dutch West mentioned. Anyway, let's wrap up the article. That doesn't mean she should have stayed celibate or that she's failed to accomplish what she set out to do. On the contrary, she seems well aware of what gets sacrificed for love. She wrote a whole, thoughtfully argued book on it. She's simply chosen, I think, to risk some of her own losses for gains she considers worth it. These are the trade offs we make. Even a conscientious objector cannot disentangle themselves completely from a society that worships partnership. Better to notice where your attention goes. Better to keep drawing it back again and again to the world around you, to the pinch in your shoe, to the buds in the tree, to the people, all the many, many people who are right there beside you. Yeah, practicing mindfulness and being aware of the world around you instead of burying your face in your phone or something like that. It's a good practice. That's how I approached my day trip into Boston when I was on the T and then walking through Chinatown to get to the Saunders Castle. I kept my phone in my pocket. I had my watch running the walking directions so I could know where I needed to go, but I didn't let my mind wander too much. I didn't bury my face in my phone while I was going through Chinatown. I got to observe all the different aspects and buildings and did a little people watching too to get some material for the channel. I don't remember anything from there off the top of my head, so I think on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here for the video. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below whether you think that. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about all this. Whether you're interested in checking out Phoebos' book now because of this article. I'm kind of curious to see what else she had to say about all of this. And don't forget to subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.